Hi there, I'm Mark Pagani and this is Tasting Tuesdays. Well, welcome back to Tasting Tuesdays. It's been quite a while since I did a review before the pandemic, actually. Once the pandemic hit, I felt a little weird about doing reviews. I felt like there were just so many other huge things to worry about in this world. But you know, it would actually have been a great time to do it because I had a captive audience, I guess. But I just wasn't into it. So I'm back. The last couple months I've been doing some reviews, and I'm excited to be back and make this a consistent thing every Tuesday again. So today we're going to do kind of an unusual thing for me. We're going to do a blind tasting. And everything is kind of going up against this guy right here. This is Blanton's single barrel. And the reason I'm doing this is because, you know, I used to drink Blanton's quite often back starting around 2007. The place in New Orleans here called the Delachaise had it for, actually still I think has it for about 12 bucks a pour, more than 2 ounce pour. And it was fine. It was a good whiskey for the price. It was one of the better whiskeys on their menu, and it was a good value, I thought. I never bothered buying a bottle, even though they were readily available back then, because I just never found it to be very interesting. It's a solid whiskey at the retail price of about 50 bucks or so, but it's just not complex enough for me. I usually like things that are higher rye content and a little bit spicier. And so I actually bought my first bottle of Blanton's last year, despite drinking it for the last 13 years. I found one in Mississippi for 55 bucks, and I bought it, and it was kind of like I thought. It's a fine whiskey, but just kind of there. And what's happened is many of these Buffalo Trace products have been allocated, meaning each market only gets a certain small amount of them, and especially Blanton's and definitely the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. So because they're harder to find, people assume, oh, they must be really, really good for some reason. Harder to find and allocated does not equal amazing whiskey. It means harder to find allocated. And so I see people like on a lot of these whiskey Facebook forums going crazy, spending a year, 2 years, spending a bunch of time and energy and money searching for this bottle. And then I am also seeing a lot of commentary after people have purchased this bottle saying it's not all that. You know, it was a big disappointment. I shouldn't have wasted all that time. And that kind of leads to another issue of I don't understand why someone would spend a ton of time, a ton of money seeking out a bottle that they've never even tried before. And so I can't stress enough, if you have the opportunity to go to a bar that has the whiskey that you're looking for, go and taste it first. Try it out before you spend all this time and then get disappointed. That's just my little unsolicited stupid tip. All right, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to taste all 7 of these blind. I'm going to have 7 Glencairns out, each with I think a quarter to a half ounce of each one of these whiskeys, and I'm going to put a letter on the bottom of each cup, each Glencairn. I'm going to write it on there with a marker. It's on a piece of black tape, so I won't be able to see through the glass to see which each one is. And then I'm going to kind of mix them all up, kind of like the shell game, and I won't know which is which. And then you and I are going to do a blind tasting together. If you possibly have any or all of these bottles, get your bottle out and taste with me. That way you can kind of write down your own impressions and I'll write down mine. And we'll see if, you know, maybe the Blanton's is going to come out the winner. I don't know. That's the cool part about blind tasting. Again, I'm not knocking Blanton's. I think it's a good whiskey for the retail price of about 50 bucks, but not for $200. And so let's find out if these readily available, much lower price or slightly lower price whiskeys how they compare to the Blanton's. Let's check it out. All right, so I've chosen 6 other whiskeys besides the Blanton's. And the reason I chose these particular whiskeys is because they are all in a price range that is the same as Blanton's at retail or lower. Some of them are much lower in price, and they are all either really easy to find on the shelf or moderately easy to find on the shelf. And most of them, if you don't find them on the shelf, you can have them ordered, and they're not allocated whatsoever. So really pretty easy to find, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to find whiskeys that are as good, if not better, than Blanton's, and are easy to find, unlike Blanton's, and are a reasonable price. So these are the whiskeys we're working with today. OGD 100, Old Granddad, Old Classic, bottled in bond. It's made in Kentucky by Jim Beam. It's 100 proof, usually at 4 years. The mash bill is 63% corn, 27% rye, and 10% malted barley, and it's usually about $23. So we have next Elijah Craig Small Batch, Heaven Hill Distillery, 94 proof, which is very similar to Blanton's. No age stated, 78% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye. It usually comes in around $27 to $29, somewhere in there. Next is Hirsch 8-year. It's 45 to 50 bucks, somewhere in there. It is distilled at MGP, Midwest Grain Producers, in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. The mash, there's two different things going on here. Well, a mash bill with 21% rye is mixed with a 36% rye mash bill, and it conveys that high rye content. The whiskey is matured for 8 years in oak barrels with a char of number 4 on the bodies of the barrels and a char of number 2 on the heads of the barrels before being bottled at 92 proof. Then we have Four Roses single barrel. Kirin Brewery is the parent company. Four Roses is in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. 100 proof. I believe is this bottled in bond? No, it's not bottled in bond, but it is 100 proof and no age statement. 60% corn, 35% rye, 5% malted barley. Usually comes in about 40 bucks. Next we have Wyoming whiskey, Outrider, which is bottled in bond, 100 proof, and it's usually about 50 bucks, sometimes 55. It is the first Wyoming-made straight American whiskey using rye. It's a sum of two parts, different mash bills created and blended to bring forth the fusion of craft bourbons and ryes. The first, representing a high rye whiskey, utilizes 48% rye, 40% corn, and 12% malted barley. The second, inspired by classic bourbon, utilizes 68% corn, 20% rye, and 12% malted barley. And I should have mentioned earlier, if you want to skip right ahead to my conclusion or the actual tasting, you can go to this spot in the video and you'll find it. Also, please subscribe to Tasting Tuesdays. Down here in the corner there's a little link, and that way each week you'll get an update on the latest tasting. Next to last, we have Knob Creek 12-year. Beam Suntory is the parent company. Distillery is Jim Beam. It's also 100 proof, 12 years old. Mash bill is 75% corn, 30% rye, and 12% malted barley. And the MSRP is $60. So again, right in line with right around what a Blanton's is. So now Blanton's. In 1984, Buffalo Trace Distillery released Blanton's, which was the first single barrel bourbon sold commercially. Blanton's bourbon is sourced from the higher rye mash bill made at Buffalo Trace, which is known as mash bill number 2. Buffalo Trace doesn't disclose the exact mash bill proportions, but mash bill number 2 is thought to be about 15% rye. It is 93 proof, and retail is somewhere in the $55 to $65 range, though, as you know, it's being sold for quite a bit more. Sometimes you're seeing it for as much as $200, $300 in some stores. So let's find out if it's worth the hype. All right, again, you can go to this spot in the video to see the actual tasting and then see the conclusion. But we're gonna do this real time just to make it all legit, so you don't think I'm cheating on anything. I'm actually gonna pour these right now. Each one is going to be a 1/4 ounce, and each Glencairn has a different letter on the bottom. And once I pour all these, I'm going to do kind of a shell game thing where I mix all the Glencairns around, probably with my eyes closed. Hopefully I won't spill anything. And we're gonna do the tasting. So this is where, whoops, I'm pouring 2 of these. I screwed that up. Pour this back in. This is real time, folks, obviously. All right, so now Blanton's. This particular bottle of Blanton's was dumped 11/14/19, warehouse H, barrel number 238 on Rick number 45, 93 proof, and it is a single barrel, hand selected by Champagne's Market. I'm not sure what that is. All right, so here's our 1/4 ounce of Blanton's, and then we're going to do a 1/4 ounce of the Four Roses single barrel. And Blanton's is also a single barrel, as you know. And then we're gonna do Bottled and Bond Wyoming Whiskey Outrider. That's actually a 1/2 ounce. It's all right. And then this last one is Knob Creek. And it is a 12-year. And again, none of this is rehearsed. I'm gonna write down my notes as we go along. And, but first, I have to mix all these up. Okay, so I've jumbled all these glasses for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I've lined them all up so that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they each have a letter on the bottom, and I don't know the letter, and the letter corresponds to each of these bottles, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I think I'm going to actually try to do a numerical rating from 1 to 100 for each one, because obviously I'm not gonna sit here and, I want this to be real time, and I'm not gonna sit here and write down full notes for each pour as you guys sit there and wait. So I think the best way to do it is just say number 1, and then figure out what a numerical value score would be. This one's kind of, there's not a whole lot on the nose. Not a whole lot of there. I get a tiny, tiny bit of oak. That's about it. Got a bit of a burn on the back of the throat, very short finish. The palate is that's slightly interesting. Sweetness, a burn on top and bottom. Hard to say what the mash bill is. It doesn't taste too spicy, too rye intense. It's generally pretty nondescript. So I'm gonna give this one about a 65. All right, number 2. This one also doesn't have a ton on the nose. Give it a try. Wow, this one's really, it tastes very low proof. It just kind of passes through my palate and straight to the back of my throat without really making an impression at all. There's a bit of caramel in the finish, a bit of a tongue buzz, but overall, again, kind of boring. I'm gonna say a little bit less than the last one, so let's say 63. All right, number 3. Huh. Weird, I'm getting a very slight, a sulfur thing, like a rotten egg, but it's not, a strong rotten egg smell. Just a very slight reminder of that. Not a whole lot going on in the nose besides that, besides just the usual oak. Try it. Well, that one is a bit richer in the mouth, still not complex on the palate, sort of boring, but it is, at least has a little bit nicer finish than the other two, a little bit longer lasting. Yeah, got a bit of a bite on the tongue. I can't really come up with words to describe the palate because it's not really a lot there. So, but I think it is better than the other two, so I'm gonna say 68 on that one. That one has a bit of a slight acetone. Not a whole lot going there either. A bit of a, it might be higher rye because I do get a tiny bit of dill pickle kind of thing on the nose. So let's see what that one's about. Actually, very similar to the last one I had as far as palate and finish. Bit longer finish. I do smell a bit of spiciness now that I didn't smell before. So it might be a higher rye whiskey. I think it's right in line with this last one that I have, but slightly more interesting. So I'm going to give it a 69. All right, now number 5 out of 7. Either my nose is off tonight, or so far none of these have very interesting noses. I think they all just seem a bit thin, a bit uninteresting on the nose to me. Some have a little bit, but this one doesn't have much. Wow, these are all very similar. Not all, but these last 3 are very similar. It's a bit more acrid. There's more of a bite. I'm getting a bit of like a hot soap, like kind of a spicy soap thing. But you know, again, when I use these terms like soap and rotten eggs, don't go all the way to the extreme on that. Just a tiny bit of what you'd consider the essence of soap. And it's still tingling my tongue a little bit, so I think it might be one of the higher proof whiskeys. That one's got a really dry finish though. It's like dry oak, dry pencil shavings, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna go with that one. It's gonna be about a 64. Not super interesting, and I don't like the acridness at the finish. Well, this one at least has something weird on the nose, like old dish rags. Mixed with a little bit of the oak. I can tell that this smells like it's got a bit higher char number. That's pretty mouth coating. There's a bit of a proof burn, but it works really well on the overall mouth coating. Let's see if I can get any specifics on this. It's got a little bit of that young, kind of burnt rubber, younger whiskey flavor. That things like if you've had Hudson baby bourbon or any other whiskeys that are in the 2-year range, it kind of tastes like that. So, but it is a little bit more interesting overall on the palate. So I'm going to give this one a 70. Actually, 72. Let's go 72. And here's my last one. Number 7. I guess I've been drinking too much rye lately because these are all, and scotch, because these are all kind of just there. That one I think is a higher rye whiskey. It's got a nice spice to it. Seems to open up just a little bit, cinching my nose hairs. It's still got a bit of a dry, acrid finish that's got a bite to it. It certainly isn't my favorite, but it's decent. It has a more interesting palate. So I'm gonna give that slightly less than the last one, so 71. All right, so the winner is number 6. Let's find out what number. I'm gonna finish this off so we can turn the glass up and see what letter we have here. 72 points, number 6 is A. Holy shit, that's funny. A is Old Granddad, the cheapest one here, 23 bucks. All right, so I had a little bit of a freak out there. When I put this glass down, I put it down in the wrong spot, so I wasn't sure if this was glass 6 or 7, but I looked back at the video just now, and I did pick out glass number 6, which is indeed OGD 100, 23 bucks a bottle, found everywhere. I don't think I've ever been to a liquor store that doesn't have this. So I don't know, that's kind of surprising to me. I really love Four Roses Single Barrel. I think that's one of the beautiful things about blind tastings is that you have your biases towards specific bottles and you keep getting it and getting it, and that is definitely has an effect on how you perceive different whiskeys. And so when you don't know what the hell you're sipping, it's just pure going on palate, nose, finish, and OGD1. So let's go check out what the other glasses are and how they all rank here. So Old Granddad 100 Bonded, number 1. Number 2 is glass number 7. Finish this off. And we've got letter G. So that is Knob Creek 12-year. That's number 2. Number 3 was glass number 4 with 69 points. All right, 3rd place is the Hirsch 8-year. That's kind of surprising. I bought that bottle and liked it, but didn't love it. But at the time, I wasn't comparing it to other bottles, so it is pretty solid. And it's about the same price as Blanton's retail. All right, so with 68 points is glass number 3, which is Elijah Craig. Letter B. Elijah Craig Small Batch got 4th place. All right, with, let's see, what's next? 65 points is glass number 1. Finish this one off. That is F, which is the Wyoming Whiskey Outrider 100 Bottled and Bond. That's kind of surprising to me. I really have always enjoyed this, and I'm surprised that it didn't score higher. So I think they said that was 5th place. Let's see, 72, 71, 69, 68, 65. Yeah, that's 5th place. And 6th place with 64 points is glass number 5, which is, there's your letter D, A, B, C, D. So 6th place out of 7 Blantons. And again, if you love Blanton's, good for you. Go buy a bunch more, spend as much as you want on it. I don't care. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to tell you what is good. I'm only telling you what is agreeable to my palate. Go for it. You know, I think it's a solid whiskey, and I'm just kind of presenting this in a blind tasting and all the rest, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not saying anything negative about any of these whiskeys. If you love it, you love it, and everyone's palate's different. And then 7th place is, surprisingly, glass number 2, which we know is Four Roses Single Barrel. That was kind of surprising that came in last place, because I've always been a huge Four Roses fan. And you know, one thing about single barrels though is that each barrel is different, so each set of bottles is going to be different. So it's possible that this isn't the best Four Roses barrel that I've had, and this isn't the best Blanton's barrel that I have had. So anyway, when you get a chance, do a blind tasting. Pick out some of your whiskeys, and you might be surprised at what you find out. I certainly am surprised by the results tonight. I've always loved OGD, but I never knew it was as solid and as it is, and that it can stack up against all of these other good whiskeys, and it's only $23. So I gotta say, go out and get yourself an OGD 100 at your local liquor store. I'm sure they have it. It's 23 bucks. It's the price of what? One macchiato? I don't drink coffee, so I don't really know. But go for it. Try it out. Let me know what you think. Say something in the comments if you'd like to. And again, subscribe down here. And I will see you next week. Thanks so much.